The grand ballroom of the St. Regis in New York City sparkled with diamond chandeliers and polished marble floors. Billionaires, tech moguls, oil tycoons, and media kings gathered under one roof for what had been dubbed the Auction of the Century, a rare collection of Middle Eastern antiquities, golden swords, sapphire-studded relics, royal manuscripts, was about to go under the hammer, but more than that. This event had become the latest playground for the rich and powerful. To flex their influence at the center of it all was Sheikh Kareem Al Saud, oil magnate. Investor and one of the richest men on the planet, he wore a flowing white bisht trimmed with gold. His head wrapped in a keffiyeh held by a black eagle. Everything about him screamed power. Except his silence, he hadn't spoken a single word since. Entering as the auctioneer prepared to begin, a hush fell over the room. Everyone was waiting for Kareem to make his move from the sidelines. Whispers filled the room. That's Sheikh Al Saud. He could buy every item in this room without blinking. Why hasn't he spoken yet? Maybe he doesn't speak English. But behind those whispers lay another layer: classism. Many of the American elites considered Kareem an outsider, a rich one. Yes, but foreign old money murmured about oil wealth as if it were vulgar tech. Giants mocked his traditional clothes behind closed smiles still. No one dared challenge him, not until he did something unexpected as the auction began. The first item was revealed, a 9th-century Quran manuscript encased in pure glass. For the auctioneer could call the first bid. Kareem raised his hand and, for the first time, spoke, but he didn't speak in English. Who sells his history does not know its worth. The words echoed powerfully in Arabic, sharp, proud, and filled with judgment. And then silence. No one in the crowd understood. The translator on standby didn't respond. The auctioneer hesitated. Billionaires looked around awkwardly. That's when a voice broke through. Wasn't a diplomat. Wasn't an interpreter. It was Maria, a maid standing quietly by the far wall. Holding a tray of champagne, she stepped forward. Clearing her throat, he said, "Who sells his history does not know its worth." Heads turned. Her voice was steady. Even if her hands shook slightly, her uniform marked her as invisible to most in the room until Kareem's eyes met hers, a flicker of something respect. Perhaps passed between them. Maria bowed slightly, then stepped back, but the room was already transformed. The American billionaires stared at her, some with surprise, others with mild discomfort. Who is she? She speaks Arabic. Kareem smiled gently and nodded once at Maria, then continued in Arabic, his voice calm but firm. To whom are these treasures being sold? Are they for display or for reverence? Maria translated again, this time, stronger, clearer, and suddenly. The true weight of his presence was felt. This wasn't a man here to buy trinkets. He was here to test values. Born in the Bronx to Porto Rican and Egyptian parents, Maria grew up learning Arabic from her grandmother. Her father passed away when she was young, and her mother worked as a housekeeper most of her life. Maria had dreams becoming a translator, maybe even a diplomat, but life had other plans. Bills piled up. She took a job as a hotel maid to support her family. Shelving her education, no one had noticed her language skills until today. Now, she was the only one in the room who could understand the chic hand that made her powerful as the auctioneer attempted to regain control. A media mogul from Texas, Mr. Barrett laughed. Well, it's all very poetic, but we're here for business. Not bedtime stories. The crowd chuckled nervously, but Kareem didn't flinch. He turned to Maria and spoke directly to her. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. Maria looked up, then translated slowly. Her voice cut through the noise. The question landed hard. No one laughed. One by one, priceless artifacts were unveiled. Kareem placed no bids instead. After each unveiling, he would speak briefly in Arabic. Maria would translate his words about the history, the significance, the people who once carried these items. Each time, the room grew quieter. He wasn't buying anything, he was teaching. Finally, a man in the back, an Ivy League hedge fund CEO, napped his eat. Is some kind of performance? If he wants to lecture us, he can do it in English. Kareem stood and, for the first time, spoke in fluent, unaccented English. Ah, so you do understand value when it's spoken in a language you own. Gasps rippled across the room. The sheikh smiled thinly. I chose Arabic not because I lack English, but because these treasures speak Arabic. Their stories were not written in your language. Their creators did not imagine them behind glass for your boardrooms. He looked at Maria. But she listened, she translated, she understood. The implication was loud and clear. The wealth in the room paled in comparison to the dignity he had just handed to a maid, and everyone knew it. The grand ballroom had fallen into a deep, uncomfortable silence. The kind of silence that doesn't simply arise from words spoken but from truths. Revealed Sheikh Karim al-Saad, standing tall with regal composure, had just addressed the entire room in flawless English. His message was deliberate, sharp, and impossibly elegant. He hadn't merely spoken to them. He had disarmed them. I chose Arabic not because I lacked English, he had sighed, but because these treasures speak Arabic. Their stories were not written in your language. Their creators did not imagine them behind glass for your boardrooms. The impact of those words was like a cold wind brushing across every neck in the room. These were men and women used to control, influence, and applause, and yet here they were, billionaires and power brokers, able to reply, because any response would only make things worse. And still, at the center of it all stood Maria, the maid, her dark curls slightly disheveled, her hands trembling faintly from adrenaline. The tray she had carried earlier, now resting forgotten on a side table. Her uniforma, plain black dress with a stiff white apron, suddenly looked less like a symbol of servitude and more like armor. She had become, in one moment, the most important person in the room. The auctioneer, still dazed, moved on mechanically. He cleared his throat and gestured for the final item to be brought out. A velvet-lined case carried carefully by two gloved assistants. Gasps rose from the audience as the lid was opened. Inside rested a centuries-old royal crown, said to have once belonged to Sultan Hasan ibn Karim of the 13th century, an enigmatic ruler whose dynasty was known for art, poetry, and the preservation of scientific knowledge during a time of global darkness. The crown shimmered with rows of emeralds and pearls. Its gold faded in some areas but untouched in others, as if holding on to its own dignity. This is the last piece of the collection, the auctioneer said, his voice barely holding steady. We will begin the bidding at $3 million. But before anyone could raise a hand, Sheikh Karim lifted his paddle. $10 million. He said. His voice was calm, almost casual. The auctioneer blinked. Stunned. $10 million confirmed, he stammered, looking around the room. Do I hear 10, 5, 11? No one spoke, no one dared. Karim had just reshaped the power dynamic in the room, and no one wanted to challenge him again, not for money, not for pride. Sold. To Sheikh Karim al-Saad. A soft, uncertain clap echoed from the back of the room. No one joined. It wasn't the kind of moment you applauded. Karim stepped forward. His long robe swayed gently as he approached the stage with a nod. He accepted the case containing the crown. He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the now quiet crowd, but instead of walking back to his table or toward the exit, he descended the stage and walked directly to Maria. People moved aside for him, not out of fear, but from something deeper. He stopped just a few feet from her. Maria looked up, startled. Her instincts screamed at her to step back, to look down, to act like a servant, but something held her in place. Maybe it was dignity, maybe defiance, or maybe it was just the overwhelming sense that this moment was bigger than her. Karim opened the case and gently lifted the crown. Its weight was evident not just in gold, but in meaning. Then, looking her in the eyes, he said softly, "For you." Maria's eyes widened. "Me?" She whispered. He nodded. "Once you listened when others didn't. You understood when others ignored. You gave voice to a history they wanted to commodify, and for that, you are its rightful guardian." Her hands trembled as he extended the crown toward her carefully, as if touching sacred ground. She took it in her hands. The weight almost brought her to her knees, not because it was too heavy, but because she felt everything in that gesture, the centuries of kings and queens who had once worn it, the scholars who had hidden it during war, the artisans who had poured their soul into crafting every gem, every line, every detail. And now it belonged to a maid. The room watched in stunned silence. One woman near the back, a gallery owner from Los Angeles, silently wiped a tear from her cheek. A hedge fund executive next to her lowered his phone. He had raised it to record, but couldn't. bring himself to press record. It felt too sacred. Maria looked back up at Karim. I don't know what to say, she murmured. You already said what needed to be said. He replied. Their eyes met once more, hers moist with tears, his calm with resolution, and then he turned without another word. Karim walked out of the ballroom as gracefully as he had entered. No bodyguards, no entourage, no photographers, just silence on reverence. The elevator doors closed behind him, and it was as if the spell broke. Murmurs started up again, low and scattered, but no one spoke about money, no one spoke about bids. They all spoke about Maria, about the moment, about what had changed, the gift that meant more than gold. Maria stood there, still cradling the crown. A hotel manager scurried toward her, whispering frantically, "We can secure that in the vault if you'd like." She shook her head. "No. I want to hold it just for a little longer." Other hotel staff looked at her differently now, some with awe, some with envy. But no one, not one person, looked at her with pity or dismissal anymore. She was no longer invisible. Within 24 hours, the story would hit every major news outlet. Sheikh gives priceless crown to hotel maid, who translated his words. A moment of cultural justice. At NYC auction, a crown for a voice. How one maid changed a room. Full of billionaires' offers would come media interviews, scholarship opportunities, speaking engagements. But for now, she didn't think of the future. She thought only of her grandmother, the one who had taught her Arabic as a child, who told her stories of desert kings and queens, the one whose voice echoed in her memory now, whispering, "One day, Hija, that your voice will mean something, even if the world can't hear it yet." Maria smiled through tears. That day had come, and it had come in the most unexpected way. With the most unexpected gift, the story hit international headlines within hours. Sheikh's message silences billionaire's hotel maid given priceless crown after translating Sheikh's words. Maria was offered a full scholarship by a cultural institute in Dubai. Later became a UN cultural ambassador, bridging languages, cultures, and histories, just like that unforgettable night. As for Sheikh Karim, he never attended another public auction again. He didn't need to. His message had already been heard around the world.